You're alive.
A very good afternoon to you out there, and welcome to the Flash News of today. I am Oyin Okbala. Let's begin. Franklin Ngoni Nje, the general manager of the CDC, has made a promise to pay the overdue salaries of workers before 25th of December. This development comes as a relief to the workers who have been protesting and demanding payment of their wages. In fact, just last month, hundreds of CDC workers took to the streets protesting in localities such as Tiko, Bendamboko, and Boter. In other news, Reverend Father Ndong Bonaventure, a priest from the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of the Midland Zone of Bamenda, was kidnapped and later released. The incident has raised concerns about the safety and security of individuals in Ambazonia. Meanwhile, in the Savannah zone of the British Southern Cameroon, a colonial military action has left many citizens trapped due to the roadblocks and gunfire. The incident occurred in Belo County on the 19th of December 2024. In a separate development, human rights lawyer Barrister Alice Nkom has been charged with sponsoring Amazonians against the La Republic de Cameroon government. The charge is part of a complaint filed at the Colonial funded military court in Yaoundé by a civil society organization. Now let's get into the full report. For many workers at the CDC, the past few years have been a struggle, with salaries owed since May 2018. Countless families have faced financial difficulties. Recently, the Colonial General Manager of the corporation revealed that the Colonial government plans to pay a portion of the outstanding debt, which totals over 91 billion francs CFA. This promise comes after a series of protests broke out in several areas, with the workers jointly demanding the payment of the years of salaries owed them in a collective strike. This promise, he said, includes overdue salaries and social insurance payments. We are 5 days to Christmas, and there are still concerns about whether these payments will actually come through by the 25th. Workers are also concerned about the ongoing attacks on CDC plantations, which has constantly posed as a threat to their safety and livelihood. In Bamenda, the priest was kidnapped and freed shortly. Since the start of the war in 2016, kidnapping has become the order of the day in the British Southern Cameroons, with imposters, armed groups often targeting civilians, demanding ransom that they use to fund their activities. At about 5:15 p.m., one of our reporters received a phone call and information that the priest had been taken out of his car in the Meter Quarter locality by some unidentified gunmen to an unknown location 10 minutes earlier. Sources from the Archdiocese confirmed that father Bonaventure was freed just hours after armed men took him from the capital of the troubled Midland zone of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Details about his time in captivities are unclear, and no group has claimed responsibility for the kidnap yet. At the time of writing of this report, the Archdiocese has not yet made a public statement about the incident. Talking about kidnap in the British Southern Cameroon, the Roman Catholic Church has been particularly affected in the past. Notable figures like the late Cardinal Christian Wilfredo Tumi was also kidnapped in September 2022. So far, 5 Catholic priests and others were taken altogether, later released. Meanwhile, in 2018, the late Reverend Father Alexander Sob, a respected priest, as testified by the community, was killed in a targeted attack. However, the Roman Catholic Church has continued to call for peace and talks between the Amazonian government and the colonial government. One would ask, what else are they waiting for when they have seen it clearly that the La Republic Cameroon government do not care about the Amazonian people? Well, moving on, so much chaos in Belo. The colonial military forces of La Republic de Cameroon set up roadblocks, stranding, ensuring that women and children are stranded, the young and the elderly alike, from daytime to nightfall. Movement was restricted and travelers were unable to continue their journeys or return home, with vehicles struck and no clear explanation provided. A new viral video captured at the scene during the day at the Bingo Junction shows a restless crowd of confused women and children trying to understand the situation. The individual recordings mentions that this isn't the first occurrence. Indeed, the colonial military forces are notorious for such interventions, disrupting civilian lives. In a second video, it is nighttime, gunfire can be heard, and those stranded are scrambling for safety. Well, although some individuals have found refuge in Bingo Hospital and a nearby church, they are still faced with limited resources. Stranded Amazonian passengers are forced to build small campfires to stay warm while waiting on the colonial army agents to decide their fate. Up until the time of reporting, no reason has been given for the blockage. Well, of course, we are on standby for more updates on this issue. Moving on, a charge has been filed against Alice Nkom by an obscure civil society organization with the acronym OBS for financing the war in Amazonia against La Republic de Cameroon. How funny. Barrister Alice Nkom is a prominent human rights offender and chairperson of the Central Africa Human Rights Offenders Network. All right, now the allegations against Barrister Alice Nkom are contained in the complaint filed by the Society Development Observatory, ODS, a relatively obscure civil society organization. According to ODS, since the third firm of the Cameroon's patriotic diaspora in July 2019, Nkom and her associates have raised substantial funds to oppose the colonial government and have financed armed separatist groups in Amazonia through remittances. The group further claims that Nkom is involved in forming a government to replace current leaders and inciting public unrest. With the knowledge of the covering of the war in Amazonia in 2018, no evidence to substantiate the claims of the ODS. However, considering the colonial government's approach to the conflict, such allegations, albeit from a civil society organization that many might never have heard of, should be taken with all the seriousness it deserves. These allegations are intricately linked to recent tensions between REDAC and colonial government authorities on the 5th of December. The Colonial Ministry of Territorial Administration suspended and banned REDAC. Remember, we gave you those reports, citing financial inappropriating. Subsequently, the Colonial Senior Divisional Officer for Warri sealed the Redac's Douala office, moved Nkom defiled by unsealing the premises as well, labeling the action illegal. She also ignored multiple colonial administrative summons challenging their legal basis. Now, critics, considering the timing and nature of the ODF complaints, have raised concerns about the potential suppression of dissent and the targeting of human rights offenders under the guise of colonial national security, notably the use of colonial military courts to try civilians. The 2022 country report on human rights practices has so far highlighted that colonial authorities often invoke laws on terrorism or cite national security to threaten colonial government's critics. The involvement of a little known NGO in bringing a complaint with such severe charges against a renowned human rights defender has become the subject of much speculation about its motivations and independence. The lack of transparency and the potential for misuse of legal instruments to stifle activism are present concerns among international observers and human rights organizations. And of course, this issue with Alice Nkom has been on for a few weeks now. I will definitely continue to bring you up to speed with much more when as the report continues to unfold. And this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the Flash News. Remember, a more extensive discussion would arise by the top of the hour, 8 p.m. for this week on Undaunted. Stay with us.
Checkered history when the dream of freedom